Hello? Over here. Thank you, guys. I know you guys are having some great conversations, but we want to try to start up the program. My name is Jim Chung, and I am the Associate VP for Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship, and I run the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is sponsoring this event today. I want to thank everyone for coming today. We have a great program set up, and we've got some great mentors and mentees, so I want to make sure that we get to those events as quickly as possible. But I wanted to do a quick introduction of what our office does. We are within the Office of the VP for Research, and our mission is to foster innovation and entrepreneurship throughout GW, working with students and faculty and staff and alumni to help you get your ideas out of the laboratories, out of the classrooms, and into the real world. So we do this along 4 different missions. One is around innovation, so we help you come up with those ideas. We help you get research funding to get those, to do your research, and to find ways to commercialize those ideas. Secondly, we're all about education, of course. We're at George Washington University. We have lots of courses and programs, modules that fit into the programs that you're doing today, the classes that you're doing today. We have something called the DC Innovation Core program, the I-Core program that's funded by the National Science Foundation to help inventors, researchers, and students get their ideas out of the labs into the real world. We have venture creation programs which help you actually launch those companies. So now you learn about how to do innovation and entrepreneurship, you come up with an idea, and then now we help you actually launch those companies. We have something called the New Venture Competition, which most of you are probably familiar with, where we give out $270,000 in cash and prizes to help you launch those companies. And I don't know what just happened here. We've got the playlist for... Is that what happened? There we go. All right. So, and then we do connections. So that's what we're doing here today, is that we're connecting you to mentors, the students and the mentors. So this graph right here is just showing you the value of how important mentorship is to startups. What you'll see on this graph here is that green, the green line there is the graph for showing how startups do in raising money when they have good mentors. And you can see that it goes straight up. The further you go along, in fact, the more important the mentors are. If you look at the red one, if you don't have a good mentor, you're not going to raise any money. This was a study done of, I think, around 800 startups, and following whether or not they had mentors and what their funding record looked like. So you can see how important it is to have mentors. And so that's what this program here is about. We also have a program that's called the Mentors in Residence program. And the Mentors in Residence are mentors that come once a week to be on campus to meet with students. And we have coverage every single day of the week. So there is always somebody at our offices or visiting among the schools so that the students can meet with them, ask questions. No matter how early you are in your process, you can always find somebody. So what I like to say is that you students have no excuse for not asking questions, because we have somebody here every day of the week to answer your questions. So I know some of the mentors in residence might be coming later, so they may not be here yet, but what I'd like to do is try to see if we can get the mentors in residence to raise their hands. Is Darren Coates here? Oh, this is the one event that Darren did not come to. Darren's usually at every single event. How about Carl? Carl Ginter? Carl's right back there. He is the quintessential tech guru. So if you have any questions about tech, he is the man to talk to. Sefer Gresham, the third person on the there, is not here tonight. He hasn't started yet, but he is a social entrepreneur who's done some amazing things, and will be starting in mid-November. Carrie Rich also is not here tonight. She's also a social entrepreneur. She's in China changing the world right now. Bob Smith, is Bob here? Okay, Bob's not here. He's been a mentor in residence before as well. He's mentor in residence now. He's got a lot of great experience, especially in the media business. Grant. Is Grant here? Grant's not here tonight. He's a tech guy as well. Great experience. Anna Maria. Anna Maria's right here. So Anna Maria as well, she now works actually full-time at the engineering school as our chief evangelist around C's entrepreneurship.
Just got here.
Who did?
Darren.
Darren, can you raise your hand? All right.
I didn't do it.
Darren's our mentor in residence, who I said makes every event, and I'm glad he's here today. And then Randy Graves. Randy, can you raise your hand? Randy Graves, one of our most dedicated alumni, mentors, and volunteers, and please introduce yourselves to them. But also, we've got a room full of incredible volunteers and mentors. I think all of them have a green tag. Is that correct? Green dot. Green dot on their name cards. So students, the people with green dots, you should not feel afraid to talk to them. That's why they're here, and that's why you're here, to talk to them. The agenda tonight, I just did my welcome, and you already did your registration. We are going to also talk about this cool new platform that we've developed, or that we're using, called Mentor City. And Dan Kunitz is going to talk about how that program can help you connect to mentors and connect to each other. We'll also have a cool keynote speaker, Andrew Perlman, who's actually supporting and sponsoring our events tonight. So please be sure to come up to him later and thank him. And then we'll have Randy Graves come up and talk about what the fun activity we're going to have tonight will be. And then we'll just let you guys mingle. So Dan, you want to come up?
Sure, thank you.
All right, so thank you all for coming tonight. My name's Dan Kunitz, and Jim mentioned this NSF-funded Innovation Corps, or I-Corps program, that I'm the director of the I-Corps activities here at GW. We help students and faculty with innovative research, explore the market opportunity, and create startups around those technologies. Not what I'm going to talk about tonight, but if that sounds like something that you're interested in, please come up and find me. I'm happy to talk about it with anybody here. So the I-Corps program that I run places a great emphasis on the role of the mentor and on the need for researchers, for teams, for students, for entrepreneurs to get out of the building and engage with their partners, with their customers, with the users, decision makers, buyers of their ideas, and get real world feedback and immerse in the real world. Very strong focus, and it has also informed all of the programs that we run around entrepreneurship. There's a strong focus on getting out of the building, getting feedback from your customers and partners, and with the role of mentors. So you will hear those of us in this space talk about this concept of customer discovery, of discovering who your customers are, what their needs are. And we did our own customer discovery over the last 6 months or so, especially the summer, talking primarily with mentors and with mentees as well, with students and faculty as well, but largely with the mentors, to understand their experiences and how we can better shape our mentoring programs. We're really ramping up mentoring programs here at GW starting this year. And I'm not going to go into all the results of those findings, but what we did hear from the mentors consistently is that they want things to be more efficient and more organized. And we got a lot of feedback about what that meant and what they were looking for. And with that in mind, we have created this tool called Mentor City, which allows mentors and mentees to create profiles to match automatically, to go through some matching exercises so that mentees can find a mentor, can reach out to a mentor who's most relevant for their needs based on where they are in their stage as a startup, the earliest idea stage, actually having some sort of technology or prototype, if they've incorporated, if they're scaling, if they're, if they have revenue, anywhere from the beginning to end of the process. Also by industry, of course, by region, folks who want to sell into a certain market globally, and then anywhere along the way. Mentors also can link their profiles to, through LinkedIn. They can populate what their interests are, what their experiences are. We are also able to have mentees match with each other. We have some simple forums where students who have an idea but are looking for a teammate, you want to enter the new venture competition, you want to enter I-Corps, you want to do something else as an entrepreneur, but you're looking for, you're a business student looking for a technology partner, you're a technology student looking for someone with legal experience, with business experience, whatever it is. We have these forums where you can create teams and you can also reach out to mentors. So before tonight, we asked mentors to create profiles. Most of the mentors here, many of the mentors here have created profiles in this system. Not all of them have. If you're a mentor here tonight and you don't know what I'm talking about, you haven't created a profile, when we're done with our speeches here, we're going to have some interns floating around with laptops and tablets, and on the spot you can create your profile if you haven't already. Students who are the mentees, this is the first time tonight that we're opening it up to mentees, and we ask you, when we're done and we're networking, to float around to these workstations and create a profile. This will be the first best time for you to create that profile and start to reach out to mentees. To mentors in our network. This is going to be growing. If you talk to those of us who run these entrepreneurship programs about how we teach entrepreneurship, you're going to hear the term minimum viable product a lot. This concept of getting something out to market that has the minimum functionality, that is what we've done tonight. We have created something that is not exactly what it's going to be down the road, but we've created the minimum functionality for matching profiles, matching teams, matching with mentors. As we progress through the new venture competition, we're one of the biggest new venture competitions in the country that will be progressing through the academic year. And as we get down to the semifinalist level, all teams are going to have a mentor. And we're going to be using this tool a lot more extensively early next semester. Right now, we are going to start to populate it, start to make those matches. So I think that's it. Anything I forgot? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Lex, my colleague who runs the new venture competition, to introduce Andrew. Thank you.
I don't know if we have a slide for Dan. Great. So I have an easy job. I'm just going to introduce Andrew. Andrew Perlman is the CEO at Form Holdings, a company that you might know as Vringo. He's a 2000 GW School of Business alum. Always nice to bring an alum back to campus. He has, as Jim mentioned, been a big proponent of entrepreneurship in general and mentorship in particular, and has helped us put on events like this and pushed us to do more in mentorship. So a lot of the work you see tonight from Mentor City and events like this has come from the encouragement that we've gotten from Andrew. Andrew is a technologist, he's an investor, he's a business person, he's an expert in intellectual property. His story is fascinating, and I won't even attempt it. He has made and lost more money than I can even imagine in his life. Hopefully made more than he's lost. So with that, let me introduce Andrew and have him talk about his reinvention and his experience. So please.
So if I'm looking at my phone, I'm just looking at my notes that I made for this, which I jotted down on the flight on the way here, unfortunately. So I started my day this morning with a meeting that I knew was going to be really contentious, and it actually brought me back to a point that one of my mentors made to me years and years ago, which is never ever start a meeting without talking about what the purpose of the meeting is and without understanding who you're sitting with and what their motivations are. So I'll first start with, what's the purpose of us all being here? Jim asked me to sponsor this event about 2 years ago, and really excited with the results that have happened and the amount of mentorship and the opportunities for students that are happening. But there are three primary goals of tonight. The first is to help drive all of you towards entrepreneurship as a skill, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. Second is clearly to help you network, and the third is to help you understand and help you reach out to mentors and know that that network is available to you. So let's first talk about what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I guess I'll start by saying I think that the Merriam-Webster definition of what it means to be an entrepreneur is wholly inadequate. The definition is a person who starts a business and is willing to risk loss in order to make money. As Lex pointed out, I've done that a few times, although I've never actually started a business. So I think that actually the more appropriate definition is one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise or takes outsized risk. And I think that that's one of the most important skills that any of you can learn as students and once you get out into the workplace. As an employer, we're constantly looking for people that are able to take ownership, and I think that that's the biggest thing in terms of being an entrepreneur. You don't have to start your own business to take ownership and to actually think like an entrepreneur. And I always want to look for people that are willing to take risk and admit that they're wrong, but really stick their necks out there for an idea. So I guess I'll go to the second point, which is who am I? And I'll tell you a little bit about my story. And I think that the key takeaways should be there are probably a handful of people that will change the course of your career and your life, and those will be your greatest mentors. The second point that I would make is if you want to be an entrepreneur, even an entrepreneur in a big company, you need a real stomach to do it. And the last point is you should never be hesitant to be creative, and hopefully that comes through. So as Lex said, I graduated from GW in 2000. I actually started college almost 20 years to the day. This building wasn't here, and Thurston Hall didn't even have internet in it, which is kind of surreal when I was thinking about it. I was walking over here remembering that you had to buy a wireless modem with 14.4 dial-up access to get the internet, and it would take 3 hours to download a song off Napster, which makes me feel like a little bit old. I left school in 2000, and I thought all I wanted to do was be in the music business. Entrepreneurship was actually not at all in my mind. I left school. I went to work at Atlantic Records in the music business, and I thought that was all I was ever going to do. And I think that one of the big mistakes about people's perception of the world is, in my mind, and I unfortunately learned it very quickly within a year of getting out of school, I actually think that there is almost no less risk in going to work at a big company than there is in starting your own business. You have no control of your own destiny when you go work at a big company, and things can change on a dime, as I unfortunately learned when I was laid off of my job. Through a bunch of twists and turns, I ended up at an early mobile startup that long before ringtones even existed, we were acquiring the rights for celebrities and licensing them out for sponsorship. Everybody can thank me for getting Britney Spears $5 million for her 2004 tour from Samsung, which was a long time ago. But we created products and services, and I got very lucky because I learned about starting a company, raising money, and I had a unique skill set for a time when people really didn't understand what mobile rights meant. Through a family friend, I ended up meeting the greatest mentor of my life, a guy named John Engelman, who started a business called Classic Media. And through an introduction, he had actually gone out and acquired about 100 different film libraries, pretty much everything that Warner and Disney didn't own. And because I knew a lot about mobile, I actually went in and pitched him on creating a job for me, which was to say, look, you make these movies, you make Underdog, you make Rocky and Bullwinkle, you make VeggieTales, but nobody's licensing your rights for video games or mobile or any of these things. Let me go do that for you. And much to my surprise, he actually gave me a shot and made me the vice president of his company. And I was 29 years old, and 4 weeks later, I was on a plane to Cannes to a content market, having the time of my life, and it was a complete blast. But he really turned me into an entrepreneur in the sense that even though I existed in his company, I really owned my own book of business, and it was a situation where I was truly in control of my own destiny. Again, through him, we ended up selling Classic Media for about $310 million at the beginning of 2007. And I stayed at the company for the new owners, and the new owners actually promoted me, but it went from being this really cool, fun, fast-paced environment where everybody was 10 years too young for their job title to a really slow-paced corporate environment, and it just wasn't my thing. So again, John Engelman had left the company, and he said, hey, I just did a little angel investment into this startup. They're doing video apps, and this is in a pre-iPhone era. They're doing video apps and ringtones, and the company's based in Israel, and despite the fact I'm Jewish, I had never actually been there. But they're looking for somebody in New York. So why don't you put your office for Vringo in my office, take the job, it's all family, it'll be all good. I could never have in a million years anticipated the twists and turns that have happened in my life in the 9 years since that happened. So privately, the company raised about $30 million. The previous CEO blew through all of the money just in time for the Great Recession. But somehow managed to get the company public in a $10 million IPO. So I'm sure everybody, since you're a student and everybody has wide-eyed dreams of being the next Twitter and Facebook and the multi-billion-dollar IPO, this is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And the company barely eked out its IPO, and I was running business development, and over the next 18 months, we watched the company go from having a $30 million valuation to having a $4 million valuation, and literally being 6 weeks from bankruptcy. That wasn't the part where I lost people's money yet, by the way. But ironically, again, through John Engelman, the most important mentor in my life, I ended up meeting, bizarrely, another GW student who was 4 years behind me, who I had never known, who had left a hedge fund and acquired search patents from a company called Lycos that existed around the time that all of you students were actually probably being born. But Lycos really invented the way that Google made money. And Alex Berger, who was this other GW student, had bought Lycos's patents, and together with a GW Law alumni named Don Stout, who's one of the greatest patent attorneys who's ever lived, had sued Google for $1 billion. And so in the idea of creative and crazy and out there ideas, Alex said to me, look, you guys are public. Your company's going to zero, but I want to be public, and I've got this crazy trial against Google coming up in 10 months. Why don't we merge my company into your company, and it'll be like biotech. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever followed public biotech companies, but anybody raise their hand if you know what I'm talking about. Yes, no? All right, cool. Anyway, the idea with biotech, if anybody ever trades biotech, is you've got the next $10 billion drug, but it's going to take you 10 years to develop, and you're going to have to go through FDA approval, so you get a discounted valuation of maybe $100 million. And Alex came to me and said, look, nobody's ever done that in the context of litigation. So why don't you buy my litigation in your public company, and, well, we'll see what happens. And a lot of crazy things happened. So about 4.5 years ago, we announced that deal. Without ever speaking to him, I experienced the real Shark Tank when Mark Cuban bought 8% of our company without me ever having spoken to him. Still haven't spoken to him. We've emailed a couple times. I did root him on when he was, when he keeps going pro-Hillary, by the way. So we have a little bit of an ongoing dialogue, but he won't speak to me on the phone. And he is still a shareholder. But on the backs of that, we went from being a company valued at $4 million to, through a merger, through the attention that the litigation brought through to the company, in 12 weeks, our market cap was $150 million. We went from being one of the 5 lowest volume stocks on the New York Stock Exchange to actually, until about 3 weeks ago, holding the all-time volume trading record on NYSE MKT, which is the small version of the New York Stock Exchange. And on the heels of that, we actually managed to raise $78 million. We bought 600 patents from Nokia. We went to trial against Google. We won a $1 billion judgment against them. We beat them 5 times at the patent office. We started attempting to license our Nokia patents to the Chinese. We got stuck in a 12-country, $57 million litigation against a Chinese state-sponsored entity. And then 2 years after beating Google, we got overturned on appeal and went from peaking at a $570 million market cap to losing 80% of our market value in 20 seconds, literally. So, if any of you guys don't think crazy things happen every day to entrepreneurs, they certainly do. But one of the key takeaways for me is, as you go through this process, constantly reevaluate what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and always be honest with the people that bet on you. And last year I was asked to give the same talk, and still to this day, one of the proudest moments of that portion of the roller coaster was a hedge fund had bet $28 million on us. They owned about 8% of our company, and after losing 80% of $28 million, the portfolio manager at that hedge fund called me that afternoon and asked me if I was okay. That was the first question that he asked me. So Long story short, we ended up licensing the rest of our IP because we realized the bottom had fallen out of the market. And at the end of last year, we collected $30 million in revenue off of IP licenses and took a cold, hard look in the mirror and said, what do we have? What are we good at? And this is where the creativity part comes in and where you constantly have to reevaluate yourself. So I was never an IP lawyer. I ended up in the space because it was the best deal for my shareholders. I ended up doing it because it was super creative and unbelievably interesting, and I recruited a great team around me. But at the end of the day, I was always good at doing deals, and I had a team around me that was great at doing deals. So we changed our company name, and we changed our business model to be a public holding company that buys growth companies. So we went from having 0 revenue to now having a trailing $35 million of revenue, and then using the capital that we raised to acquire 3 operating businesses. So the one that you guys might know of, which we signed an agreement to buy in August, is Express Spa. So if you guys go through the airports, the spas that are in airports, anyone? Yes? Yeah, okay, lots of heads nodding. So we own that. We own a business that sells rugged computers and solutions to law enforcement, things like body cameras, and we own a company that makes wireless charging devices. And we sold our legacy mobile apps business to a company in the UK that's doing phenomenally well. So if that's not creative and a big pivot twice, I'm not really sure what is, but that's kind of the level of perseverance that I would hope that all of you have as you embark on the journey of being an entrepreneur, because it's never easy. People always say, well, it'll cost twice as much money as you think and it'll take twice as long. It's a lot more than that. You have to have the stomach to be honest with the people that you're dealing with, to be a leader, to compel loyalty when the chips are down, because the chips will be down at some point, no matter how big or small or crazy or simple your business is. And you just have to keep pushing. And and the happy ending of the story is next year, together with Express Spa, our combined revenue will be almost $100 million. I took a company from a $4 million market cap to 570, and now our fully diluted market cap is 90. So a little bit of a crazy ride, but there's nothing that you'll ever do in your life that's as rewarding if you do it right, and that's why we're all here, and that's why I love to be involved in entrepreneurship. So I hope everybody enjoys this evening and has an opportunity to do some great mentoring and networking.
Yeah, I'll take questions. Got time for a couple of questions. Anybody got a question for Come on, ask a question.
We got a microphone too, so.
We can throw it around.
So yes, this catch box is the microphone. Who's got the first question? I see it back there. It's better to toss it.
Yeah, it is more fun if you toss it. So Andrew, I guess my question is, there's a bunch of students in the room who are aspiring entrepreneurs and want to go out into the world. What is the best criticism you've received in your career that you can pass on to us, and the best advice that goes with that?
The best criticism. Wow, that's a hard one. I've received a lot of criticism. Well, I'll tell you what I think is, it's not the best criticism of me, but I think it's the toughest questions that I'm always faced with, because it really has to do with managing the people around you. So the thing that's always the hardest for me personally, and again, this happens every year, is every year you have to deal with the board, and you have to talk about who your organization is. And the toughest criticism, or the thing that's always the hardest to handle, is to be able to separate your personal likes and loves for the people around you with the needs of the business. And I don't know if that's a weakness of mine in particular, but that's a very difficult thing to do. I've had people that I considered partners and had a board of directors who their job is effectively to criticize you and to keep you on the straight and narrow. And I've gone to them with one suggestion as to what to do with a person, and they have said, you're out of your mind, and really pointed me in the right direction. But I think that's, I don't know if that's answers your question, but I think that's the most challenging thing to do, and the thing that probably personally I'm the worst at. If you can throw it, you need it.
Please do. Elma Levy, I have a question for you. Do you still have a mentor? And my follow-up question is, over the years, as you matured in your business, do you feel that you need a different style of mentoring?
So yes and yes. So John Engelman, who gave me my first shot, who introduced me to the guy that bought the Lycos patents, he's still on my board of directors. I talk to him every few weeks. I think he sometimes questions why I still need him in my life, but I really do. And then separately, for this latest chapter, there were actually specifically people that I recruited to our board because, as a public company, you have to deal with your board. So that's the most convenient place to put mentors in your life because it's just natural. And I absolutely needed a different skill set. I needed people that knew more about complex investment structuring, and I needed people that knew more about helping me create a compensation plan and real program around operating businesses. So I recruited people with that skill set who are very much in my life and who I probably speak to almost every day.
We got time for one more. I'm kind of the Kirk Cousins of entrepreneurship here. You ready?
Andrew, in this process of looking for additional skills outside of the company, do you have an advisory board and do you change membership on a regular basis?
We do not have an advisory board. I think that advisory boards are very useful for straight tech companies. Again, I always go back to there's sort of this notion in particular with public companies, but certainly with startups, that you have to surround yourself with great resumes. And to me, it's not about great resumes. It's about people that are actually accessible and usable and have purpose in your life. So to me, managing 3 operating businesses in our legacy IP business and managing a real board is enough. That's enough organization in my life. I don't need an advisory board, but I think that tech companies, I've seen it really work for people that have very hardcore technology companies where they need a regular board of directors, they need people to advise them on the course of the business, but they separately need some very specific area of expertise where there's feedback. So, but in terms of our regular board, yes, we do rotate people. I just went through the process earlier this year of rotating out half of our board because they had been on the board for a while, and like all groups of people, you get a little bit of groupthink and you need to shake it up.
I think with that, we should quit then and see if that's the end. Randy, your slide is next to you, I think. There's a slide. So now we get to the... Yeah, so let's get to the fun part. Let me ask Randy Graves to come up and lay out the ground rules for the structured network.
Okay, now's the fun part. But before we get started, first I want to say that at last year's mentor meeting that we held about this time last year, of the 10 finalists in the New Venture competition, I think at least 8 teams were at that meeting. So, and I know the first place team was at the meeting because I personally talked to them and then later met with them as a mentor in residence. So I think somewhere in this room may be the representatives of the winning team for the next New Venture competition. So Lex can help you get started in that activity. So,
could you ask them to just raise their hand if you're the winner out there?
okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to do the fun part of this, and somebody at 8:30 is going to win a $100 prize from the drawing. So what you're going to do is you're going to give your little pitch to at least 3 mentors, get the mentors to sign your piece of paper that you got when you checked in. Turn those in to Jasmine. Jasmine, raise your hand. Where are you? She's around somewhere. Well, anyway, find Jasmine or find one of Jim Chung or Tengiz. Where's Tengiz? He's here. And turn your sign cards in to them. And at 8:30, we'll do a drawing, and somebody's going to win $100. So let's get started. Without delay, start talking.